Hello, everybody. We are here with Ivan today talking about Databricks apps. So, Ivan, can you introduce a little bit yourself and your background? And
Sure.
then let's talk about Databricks apps.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ivan Trusov. I'm a senior specialist solutions architect at Databricks. I'm with the company for 5 years. I am responsible for topics related to Unity Catalog, serverless security, platform automation. But with the recent addition of the Databricks apps, and I'm quite a person who likes to do applications in various languages, I indeed was very much interested and became an SME on the apps topic.
So, then let's go through the apps. So, what are these Databricks apps and what challenge do they solve?
Sure. So think about the following scenario when it comes to building your data platform. Could it be on Databricks or outside Databricks? Doesn't really, play a big role, but indeed, all best platforms are built on Databricks, that's for sure. You have your data platform where you have most of your company data stored. And on top of this data, you can have various types of workloads. One type of the workload is to do ETL, ingest the data from the source, store the data into your data platform, and process it in various ways. This is what we do on the Databricks platform very good because, Apache Spark is running very nicely and well on Databricks, and they also have various, things which improve this experience. And we can really process big amounts of data, store them, and do ETL on top of them. Now we have different use cases for this data. Some of these use cases are BI, and for this purpose, any user can connect with proper permissions, obviously, can connect to Databricks SQL, send queries, and analyze the data in the data estate. Another case is machine learning. So with Databricks, users build huge scale machine learning models. They build also LLM/AI models and many things like that. However, there is a scenario when you would like to provide your data in a very curated form with possible user inputs in a way of a packaged front end, which users who are totally non-technical can easily use, or maybe technical users can use it too. But this provides the tailor-made experience for the users who have no experience with, SQL or any BI tooling. And the cool thing of apps is that it allows the developers to control precisely how the data will be represented to the users and what kinds of actions users will be able to make. In this perspective, apps are a flexible tool which allows you to easily run applications on top of your data with native security integrated. This is very brief summary of the data. Does that make sense?
Yes. So, it is a nice way to share our kind of data externally with users that
Yes.
shouldn't be on Databricks. We
Yeah.
handle permissions behind the scenes and they just see a nice UI which they can filter, adjust, play with it, but in a kind of secure way and
In a
in a
curated way,
specific
I would
form, in
say.
a
Yes.
curated way. Okay.
Exactly. And here's a very important thing, right? So when we think about data apps, we usually think about, some basic dashboards with filtering and things like that.
Mm.
For sure, you can do this. Like it's fairly easy to code and it's fairly easy to build on Databricks apps. So if this is the task, you may consider actually using Databricks dashboards, or you may consider using the apps. However, when it comes to, more advanced data usages, such as, let's say, 3D data visualization or complex user inputs or complex user interactions with the data, such as maybe 3D scans analysis or
Mm.
anything related to that, this is where you would like to be able to customize the interface as much as possible. And this is exactly what apps do. They give you the ability to customize the logic and control the logic of how your users are using your data. This is the whole idea of the Databricks apps.
Amazing, thanks. And then in terms of how it is implemented on the Databricks platform,
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit on the infrastructure?
Sure. So Databricks apps is a managed product surface. So you don't need to think much about how big is my server and things like this. Databricks apps run purely on serverless compute. That's not something that we do in Classic. So Databricks apps are purely serverless. And you can think of them in this perspective perspective as a lightweight containers. Each app has 2 CPUs and roughly 6 GB of memory. And practically it is an HTTP/WebSocket server. So you spin up this server, and inside the app runtime, we have a Python. We have Python, and you are able to install from requirements.txt any additional packages you might be looking for. In fact, you can also run other languages, like you can run a Node.js server, you can run a Go server, and any other servers. But this is, to be honest, rarely needed. We mainly see, usages of Python. And what is very convenient is that because the app is managed, you don't need to think about authenticating users. Everybody who has ever built an application knows that, connecting, setting up OAuth, single sign-on, password database, all these things are quite complex, to be honest. And we take care of this because the application is running on the Databricks platform, and you have your single sign-on into Databricks. And as soon as you have it, you can choose the users, or you can open the application to all users in your organization, and users have access to it. So from the technical perspective, it is an HTTP server with a built-in authentication layer, which runs on serverless compute in the Databricks serverless compute plane. Does that kind of help with
Yes,
understanding?
thanks. You spoke a little bit there about the different kind of servers you can spin up, but in terms of frameworks, are we open to what framework you can use to build this up? And if yes, how open?
Yeah, we're quite open in this
Hmm.
perspective. So practically, as I've said, Databricks apps comes with a Python, well, it comes with pre-installed Python, which means that, in the first release and the current release in the current version of apps, we're very much targeting any Python users. So if you would like to write an application in Python front-end frameworks such as Dash, Streamlit, else could be there on the list, Reflex. There are many of them, right? I just cannot handle them all in my head. But yeah, there are many Pythonic frameworks which are running as HTTP servers, and they are capable of sending, the front-end payloads and having these nice applications. So I've said main class kind of, I would say, is probably Dash, Streamlit, Reflex applications like that. You can easily spin them up on Databricks, and you can have any kind of UI built there. And the backend logic is integrated, so you can easily get the Databricks client from the SDK and bind the user inputs to any action in Databricks. You can build your own Databricks UI if you wish, but that's probably rare. But you can have things like user has a custom input, and then there is a button which clicks run, and this button starts a workflow, for example. Or
Yeah,
you
I've
can
heard a
have a
lot of our
chatbot.
customers
Yeah.
actually building their own UI, kind of
Yeah.
their own workflow UI and spinning up here.
Yeah, because sometimes you don't want the business user to see the Databricks
Mm.
UI because it may sound a little bit too complex, but we also make it quite simple. But it's usually a tailor-made experience for a specific business purpose, right? So you can, for example, upload a file and click the button, and the file will be processed in a way which you as a developer have controlled. This is, I think, one of the main features of the apps. And one more option that you have as a developer, Python front-end frameworks are good, but sometimes they may be a little bit limiting in terms of UI customization options. And in this scenario, you can either build custom components on these frameworks, or you can have a fully customized front end written in JavaScript or TypeScript. And then you can compile this into SSG, so modern compilers like Vite, a bundler, it's called bundling. Like Vite, ESBuild, they all support bundling your whole application into a set of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. And then you can serve these files from your Python server and run all of this on the Databricks apps. This is a very suitable scenario when you want to have a very custom front end and still be able to use Databricks apps. So this kind of also bridges the gap when you want to have really custom application on Databricks. Yeah, so those are kind of the scenarios. And indeed, there are more scenarios. I've seen people running other languages like Node and Go on Databricks apps. We support this with a little bit of workarounds. And if you have a case like this, we would be quite interested in listening about that. Does that explain the framework choice?
Awesome. And for people who want to start playing with it, what are the minimum requirements for building an app? So what code files do we need exactly?
In fact, no code is needed. I mean, we have a nice video. I think we can link it later. Practically, you need to have access to your Databricks workspace, and there is a template which you can click in like 3 or 5 clicks. I think you can have a running application, and it will show you an example of how things could be built and how to connect. And there is also a very nice application cookbook, which is at apps-cookbook.dev. It's a public source that we
We can
probably will
link
make
this
it
as
part
well.
of. Yeah, we will make it our of our documentation eventually. But yeah, it already provides you a very quick start, very easy start. The only thing you need to know is maybe minor bit of a Python, and this would be already enough.
Awesome. Should we do a demo?
Sure. The question is how complex the demo you would like to see. I'm going to show a couple of examples because I think this kind of helps users to understand what they can do on the Databricks apps and what options do they have. So
Yeah,
let's take a
let's
look.
start and we will ask you for deeper dive.
Sure. Go on.
Sounds good.
So this is the standard view of a Databricks workspace. I hope you can see it and it's like big enough and readable. So let's just create a new application from scratch. How would I do this? So you just click New App, and here you can either have your own custom application or you can select a template. And as you can see, the choice of frameworks is, well, quite robust. So you can have a Dash application, you can run a Shiny, Streamlit, Gradio, you can have just a pure Flask application. And there are also the templates, there are more simpler templates, and you also have a more advanced options. And here, for example, you can build your own chatbot view, you can build your own SQL warehouse, and or just start with a very lightweight hello world, which shows how things could be built. Okay, and the same for other frameworks. And if you are already a little bit more advanced, that you can go towards a custom application and fully configure it on your own. So as you can see, to start it, there are no dependencies. Even you just click next. You need to give it a name and give it a description optionally. You can also make application subject to a serverless budget policy, and then you just click install app. And what's happening under the hood is that the application will be spin up and the sample code will be saved into your user directory here. So as you can see, this is the source code of my application. If we quickly take a look into it. So this is my app, and it has just 2 configuration files, well, 3. One is requirements.txt, so what kind of dependencies do we have? Another one is app.yaml, which describes how the application should look like and how it should start. This application is fairly simple, so it just says, use Python, will run the app.py file. And the app.py file again is a very, very simple, very lightweight Dash bootstrap with some charting data and that's takes 25 lines of code practically with comments.
I love the fact
just
that
to spin it
you
up.
can start with a template, but then you
Yeah.
always have the code that you just can use and expand. So
Yes.
then you just have an easy way to start.
Exactly. This is the idea. You can easily spin up the application first and think about other things later, like connectivity and connection to other endpoints and everything. But yeah, but for starters, this is a great and very, very easy, very fast way to make this work. Yep.
Question, Ivan. So if you have an application already running somewhere else and you just want to migrate it to Databricks, and it is one of the frameworks you said before, kind of the custom app, is it quite easy to do?
I would say yes, and I've actually seen customers who were, migrating their applications to Databricks. To be honest, since I've never heard of problems with such migrations, I would assume that this is fairly lightweight and easy process. I mean, for sure, there could be, more custom scenarios where kind of code rework may be required, but as of now, I haven't heard anything complex in this scenario. So, if you have a running Python application written in one of these frameworks, you easily can start doing the same thing on Databricks.
Sounds good.
And apps also, they're quite robust. They provide you with interfaces to see how the application is running and what is happening there. It has this history of the deployments for sure. And I also would like to mention our recent feature. Now it is possible to use the actual user identity inside the application. Inside the app, you can understand who is the current user and perform actions on behalf of this user. This is really convenient. So, you can have a single application which shows a table, but depending on who is the user, the table will have, let's say, different row and column level filters, for example. This is quite a new thing, and I encourage everybody to take a look. It's called OnBehalfOf for Databricks apps. This is released a week ago. Really cool thing.
Okay, so this is kind of a service principle that assumes the permissions of the user, and then this propagates to the Unity catalog tables and all the other resources used.
For example, to Unity
I
catalog
don't know
tables.
if I'm on Azure, it syncs with AAD, etc., and all the permissions. Okay, perfect.
Yep. This is also correct. So this user will be authenticated as a proper full-scale user. You can do actions under it. And indeed, if you are running, into the problems and you have question, okay, so what is with my application? Something is not there, or anything like this. We have the logs tab, and it provides you with a detailed log about, what was running, what kind of requirements were installed, and if any errors. This also provides a convenient interface to understand what is there. Yeah. But this is quite a not advanced application. This is, as we said, right? It's just, as a quick starter. So if I just click the link.
Are you going to show us the custom too?
Yeah, I would like to show the custom app. I believe this would be also of interest for the listeners. So this is, as I've said, this is a very simple application. It practically, just shows a Plotly chart using Dash. And it's a very good thing to start. I'm not judging the complexity here. However, real life applications, they tend to be a little bit more complex, and they want, they require a slightly better level of understanding of what is happening. And I have an example of an actually very customized and, very UI heavy application. And the good thing is that the actual source code of this application, it's a chat with quite advanced logic. The source code of this application is public, and I even wrote a whole blog post about it, which explains the architecture and, everything in detail.
Amazing. We can link that too then.
Yeah, we're going to link it for sure. The source code is open again, so, it's easy to start. Today, before our call, I needed to spin up this application in a completely new workspace, and I made it in under 10 minutes. So I created the workspace and spinned up the application there. This was really fast. It didn't took much time. So it's a good example because it's it has all the good explanations. Yeah. So shall we deep dive into it? I think that would be a good idea, right?
Yes, let's see a little bit the functionality of the app and what.
I must warn though, this is a little bit more advanced example. This is definitely not a quick starter, but it shows the end-to-end application on Databricks, which is, in my opinion, a very interesting thing. So I'm gonna first of all just quickly show the solution architecture. This is a little bit more complex application, and let me explain the logic behind it. So imagine that your organization has a huge amount of different PDF documents, and you want to have a chatbot which is capable of providing advices based on these documents. So not just out of the thin blue, but actually based on the document content. And the question is, can we do this? Can we do this on Databricks? And the answer is definitely yes. But how such a process would look like? So first of all, we just need to upload the PDFs and we're going to store them in the Unity catalog volumes. This is a very convenient storage for any kind of files. The data is stored in your cloud storage, so it's not like stored on Databricks or anything like this. The data is still stored in your cloud storage, and access to this data is controlled through Unity catalog. So, this volume is a representation of a specific folder on the cloud storage. Now, from these files, we can quickly build a vector search index, and we can do all of these things inside Databricks. And then we can use this vector search index data to prepare an agent serving endpoint. And this agent serving endpoint will behave as an agent. I've written it using LangChain, which is more or less industry-wide adopted. What it does is that it uses a Databricks served llama model, and this model is able to retrieve the details from the vector search index, and based on this provide, more precise responses. Not just generic knowledge, but actual knowledge based on the volume information, right? On the information from these raw PDFs. And this is good, but, for the end user, this doesn't say much. So as an end user, I would like to have an interface. Well, and, the most modern interface nowadays is the chat interface. And this is exactly what we do with the app. So we're going to have a chat interface, which is built in Dash, but we're going to have it with a slight twist. The standard chat interfaces are cool, but they have a problem. I want not just to understand from which file the information was taken. I also would like to understand from which specific piece of this file the information is coming. So what I can do, because I know this chain of reasoning, I can actually highlight specific pages or pieces of text that were used by the agent to make the decision when the response was generated. And this sounds a little bit complex. Let me show you how this works in action. So here is a chat, and this is a chat assistant, as you can see. And I have trained this assistant on the data which is coming from Databricks documents. So I just saved a chunk of various Databricks documents. There are many materials that we write as essays. Our engineering and product, everybody writes some materials. And what we can do is that we can put this chat on top of this data. And now I can ask questions from the agent, and the agent will not just respond to me with, correct answers, but it also will highlight to me where this information is coming from and which lines exactly were used to generate the response. So as you can see, these lines here are highlighted
So
with,
it kind of brings the document page exactly and highlights
yes,
it on it.
exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that we can, since the document page is shown, so this is an actual PDF, I can add a download button here if I want, but I omitted this for security reasons. This not just shows me the actual page, it shows me the precise pieces of text that were used by the agent to prepare to generate the response, which is,
Nice.
very close to how people are reading the actual documents. I'm not going to read 200-page document to understand the response. I want to see, more precise pointer. And this is exactly what I'm doing here.
I love that you don't also show the parsed text, as in after you extract it from the PDF, you're actually showing the PDF with a really nice touch.
Exactly. This is so convenient for the users, and so as you can see, right, so it can highlight the relevant materials not just in one document, but in multiple documents. Yeah, and I still can, I can open the document. This is page 25, for example, but I can read around it if I think, okay, I need to understand the context here, what is happening. So I can, read around it and rotate and go back and forth to see what is actually happening. Okay.
Excellent. So you're preloading a couple of pages back and.
Yep, exactly. So, and indeed I can copy, the response, and in fact, there is also an API to give feedback to the responses, and you can have here like +1 and -1, but I decided to skip it, to not to increase the complexity. And the best thing, you can run this application from the source code on your data in less than 10 minutes from the repository I have shared. So you can easily start doing this on Databricks like today. Okay.
Amazing.
This is the demo, but let's talk a little bit about, okay, so how this is implemented, right? So what are the details of this more advanced? So,
Ivan, let's focus
yes,
on the app side, okay? So let's not go into how do you build a vector search and etc. Let's
sure.
focus.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I will admit. I'm gonna talk more about the application.
Sounds good.
So
Yes.
the application practically needs access only to two things. There needs to be an agent which is capable of returning the text and metadata, like the files where the data is coming from. And it needs to be able to reach to the volume, so it needs to have access to the volume, to download files from there. To read files from there and be able to demonstrate them in the chat interface. And indeed, this is not the same chat interface as the default Dash chat component. This is something more customized. The good thing is that Dash is really good at customizing things. So with minimal knowledge of TypeScript, I've actually built this relatively simple component, which is called Chatten UI. And inside it, I practically implemented this logic. So, exchange of the messages and the ability to download the PDF content. Okay, so this is pure, client-side interface. In fact, most of the code here was generated with ChatGPT and Copilot. So,
Give us
it's
your
not...
tricks.
Yeah, it's not that I was, doing it precisely myself. A lot of things here were made with Copilot. Yeah, but logically we can understand what's happening here, right? So when we type something in the chat, we hit enter, the message goes back to the Databricks API, and we get the response, and then we parse this response. And when the user selects a specific PDF, we can show the model with this PDF viewer, okay? And what PDF viewer is doing is that it practically downloads the file, again, from the app, and shows the exact page and highlights here. So here we have this text highlighter, and highlights this exact piece, which is, kind of important, right? This highlights the text which agent considered as important. Okay, so this is practically the whole logic. And in terms of API calls, we practically see that this just has 3 routes. So we need to download the file here, and we need to take the relevant page index from the file. So on which page should we start and what should we highlight? And this is practically the whole information. And indeed, the chat API, so, just post to the chat. This is our front end, right? Now let's take a look at the backend, because backend is where the application is running. So let's just take a look at the backend here.
So and the backend is always on this app.py.
No, you can actually have any name. It's just, more convenient. But in fact, you can have any other name. In this application, I actually have 2 apps, right? One application is responsible for API, and another application is responsible for UI, which is, a good approach in general. And I have one, kind of parent app, and then I just mount subpaths. So this is where the /API will be responded. And this is where the UI will be responded, right? So this is quite simple in this perspective. Yeah, my application here is this app. And as you can see, it is a Fast API app. I prefer Fast API. I find it a very convenient, interface to work with the data. And we can see what is happening with this application, right? So first of all, I am using this post chat, and this goes into chatting with LLM. So it, first of all, it checks if the response is in the cache. If we have it cached, we probably can respond immediately. If not, we can send this message to the serving endpoint. So this is where we are calling Databricks API through the Databricks SDK. As you can see, I'm using the standard workspace client here. And this workspace client sends the query to the serving endpoint. And then we just need, to decode the response and download the files, because here's the thing, since we return the response, we know which files should we download, so we can download the files into the cache, so when the user clicks the button, we immediately show the user the file. This is
so
loaded already.
So this cache is in the serving endpoint that the app is hosted.
Yes, this cache is no, this cache, the file cache is actually inside the Databricks app itself.
Okay.
It's in the memory of the Databricks app. Yeah.
And
so
where do you define exactly, like where do you try to match the chunk that was taken from the index with the file?
With a file, yes, this is a great question. Let me show you. So I have this request, and then I have this find best match query. So let me explain. I have this special class, which is called file content. It's fairly simple. It just has, the raw bytes of the file. And the cool thing is that, again, since we are inside the Python server, I can actually use any methods to find the best match. I am using one of the fastest approaches, which is based on the file. So, I know which text was interesting for agent, and I know that this text may have slightly different formatting in the PDF file, which means that I cannot use, an exact search, but I can use fuzzy search. And this, as you can see, actually looks very good because, I've tested it several times, and with even, like just basic fuzzy search, we can hit, more or less close logic here. Yeah. So as you can see, and this is very fast. So it's convenient. Indeed, we could use also some AI here, maybe, but I'm skipping this for simplicity, okay? Yeah, and then we just return, the page number, and this is practically it. Then this page number gets into the client, into the browser, and the browser renders the page. So it is kind of that simple.
This is very cool. And do you think that it would be possible if you modify like the number of chunks that are returned from the vector index that, you could, I don't know, you can show to the user what was rejected, what was accepted, I don't know, like things like that.
It will still work even with bigger or smaller chunks of the vector search. I haven't tested this much because once again, vector search and setting up correct chunking of the files is not something that is of my specialty. I wasn't doing this for a while. So I took, just default recommendations from LangChain. But I think if we change the size of the chunks, we still will get pretty solid results. Yeah. Okay, and maybe one more trick that we do here, as I've said, so I'm using a file cache, and this is practically, just a Python dictionary in the memory. It's a built-in Python class, which is called TTL cache. It's actually it's built in Python. It's not even a third-party library. It is just a Python built-in component, and it keeps the files in the cache for a given amount of seconds. I'm holding them for 1 hour. And every time when I download the file, I first check if it's not in the cache. And if it is actually in the cache, I can just return this file as a set of bytes. Practically, this is it. And at the start of my application, I can download some files if I know their popularity.
Yeah, the popular ones, yes.
This again brings, this snappy feeling because for end users, this is very important that, they just click 1, 2, 3, maybe a couple of seconds passes and they get the file at the exact position, So this brings this kind of convenient
Amazing, Van. That's really great.
Yeah. And maybe to specify on how this is getting deployed on the apps. So I am using here Databricks asset bundles, and this is extremely convenient because take a look. In fact, this is a big application, right? It has a couple of jobs that, prepare and download the code and download the PDFs. It has like the indexing capability, the agent setup, everything. But it also has the application itself. The application is here. And take a look how convenient this is. I have just one single configuration, and I easily can reuse the same config for the workflows and for the application itself. So this is really something that is very much convenient and easy to work with.
Excellent.
And yeah.
So you can replicate this to any other environment with all the workflows for the data ingestion preprocessing.
Absolutely.
Plus releasing the app. Nice.
Yeah. As you can see, so I was deploying the application like today, 10 minutes before our call, and I was quite certain that it's gonna work, and it worked, fortunately. So as you can see, my command here is, well, it is very simple what I'm doing. Let me just find it. This is all logs from building the front end. This doesn't play a big role in the deployment process. Yeah. So as you can see, this is what I'm doing, right? So I'm just doing Databricks -p, the name of my profile. You will have your own profile. Don't use my name. This will not work. Bundle deploy, and then I can just pass the variable. And this is it. This will deploy the application for me and make it up and running and start the application. This is it. It takes a couple of minutes practically. Yeah.
Excellent. So we will link the repo so people can try.
Yeah, definitely. This was my idea, that anybody can walk through it, and I have the documentation here for anybody who is interested. If you would like to quickly start and spin this up, you can find the repository here, and it also contains the showcase and tells you what is needed for development setup and how and what to be configured. So it has all of the steps, and it's not that big. This is it. Several steps, prepare the workspace, and you're good to go.
Excellent. Thank you, Van.